Welcome to Season 4 of She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Heater's turning off. Good. Loud. I apologize, but it's cold in here. Welcome, and thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A or community chat session. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips and tricks and techniques that I use every day in my own voiceover business. And we get together weekly in these community chat sessions to talk about topics that you guys ask me to talk about. So, but if you're not new here, then you know that every week we have a new poll or topic of discussion. And today that is, how comfortable are you in your audiobook formatting and editing process? And this question, of course, comes from a handful of questions that I got this week from people that I'm working with, or YouTube comments, or just all over the place. And that is, what is the format of an audiobook in terms of not just the file specs, like the ACX standard, but do you include the dedication? Do you include the table of contents? What do you include in the opening and closing credits? Where does everything go? If there's subsections or subtitles within a chapter, is that all within the same chapter file, or are those all separate files? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to sort of demystify this and answer some of the most asked questions that I get in terms of audiobook formatting, like the structure of audiobooks. So the question, of course, is how comfortable are you? So I kind of wanted to get a pulse as to where you guys were all at. So it looks like 21 votes so far. Wow. Okay, so we have 24% of you that said I pass QA, which is quality assurance. And that is the section, or once you submit an audiobook on ACX, then it goes to the rights holder and they approve it. And once the rights holder is fine with it, then it goes to quality assurance, which is ACX's software. They check to make sure that your file hits all of the standards, right? Your noise floor is where it's supposed to be. Your RMS is where it's supposed to be, so on and so forth. So 24% of you said I pass QA every time. So you're good, right? 28% of you says I have some issues sometimes, which I think is pretty typical, right? Because not all files are going to be the same. Not all dialogue within the files is going to be the same. So there might be a little bit of tweaks that you need to make here and there, right? But for the most part, you get the file formatting down. 19% of you said I'm having a hard time with it, which is pretty typical in the beginning, right? You're still learning where everything goes and how to get to ACX's standards. It's technically challenging, so don't beat yourself up about it. It is a little bit of a bear to learn. And 30% of you said, I haven't tried yet. So I think, what should we do first? Let's break down the audiobook format really quick, and then we'll get to the comments, because that's why we're here, right? So when it comes to what to include in an audiobook, if you listen to audiobooks yourself, which I highly recommend as a audiobook narrator to listen to audiobooks yourself to get an idea of what is included, what isn't included. you pick up so much on a professional level from listening to audiobooks, little tips and things that you just pick up by listening to other narrators to incorporate or to apply to your own narration style, right? But the table of contents is not included in an audiobook, but it is a useful tool in that when you're first setting up all of your separate files, right? Your very first file is going to be your opening credits. The second file is going to be an introduction, if there is one. Use your table of contents to sort of break up the audiobook by chapters or sections, right? When it comes to dedications or about the author or not so much preface or prologue, because those should be included, but little things like maybe an opening quote, right? Dedication about the author. I know I'm forgetting something else, but those little things, it's really the rights holder's prerogative whether or not they want those included. And that is definitely a question you want to ask as soon as you get the manuscript, ideally before you even make the quote, right? So if an author reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I love your voice. I'd like for you to be the voice of my audiobook," and you say, "Fabulous. Let me do this. Let me get a copy of the manuscript and I'm going to look it over to see if I have any questions." And when you receive the manuscript, you can first and foremost verify the word count and make note if there are dedications, if there's an about the author, if there's other titles available from this author, things like that. You can ask the rights holder at that point, do you want these included in the audiobook? And then at that time, then you can add the word count for those into your quote as well. And then once you look it over, you check for any accents that may be needed. If there's any other questions you have about the formatting or the structure or anything else, you can then ask the rights holder at that time before you quote, right? I feel like I'm getting a little off track, but using the table of contents is a great rule of thumb for breaking down your files. So the first file is going to be your opening credits. Then it's going to be the preface, if there is one, the introduction, if there is one, and then chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. If there are subtitles or subsections within that chapter, they remain within that chapter. The only time that you would break up a single chapter is if it exceeds 2 hours in finished time, right? Each of the files cannot exceed 120 minutes, which is 2 hours. So if it's really long chapters that come out to be about 3 hours long, you might need to consider some place to break that up, right? Chapter 1, part 1, chapter 1, part 2. It's rare, but it can happen. That is the only time that you'll break up a singular chapter. What else? So as you go through all of the chapters, and then at the end, if there's a prologue, an epilogue, if there's a about the author, if the rights holder wants it, and then your very last file is going to be your closing credits. Now, what do you get? What do you include in your opening and closing credits? Your opening credits are the title of the book, the subtitle, if there is one, written by the rights holder's name, narrated by, or read for you by, however you want to phrase it, your name as the narrator. That's it. The closing credits are going to be very similar. It's going to start with, this has been the title of the book, subtitle of the book, written by the rights holder's name, narrated by or read for you by you, the narrator, and then you're going to have the copyright year, right? Copyright 2024 by whoever owns the copyright. And then you can also include production copyright. So, for example, if the book was published and the copyright date is maybe a couple years ago, so if the copyright date is 2022 and the production is taking place this year, you could say production copyright by whoever owns the copyright 2024, right? And the only other thing to keep in mind is if the book itself does not have the end anywhere within the context, with it, the last chapter, the very last thing in the last chapter is not the end. If the end isn't in there, you'll need to also include that in the closing credits. So if the book, the very last chapter doesn't have the end at the end, then you would say, this has been title of the book, subtitle, written by, narrated by, copyright dates, the end. Right? And then also you would have the retail sample. And the retail sample is, if you've ever gone on to Audible and we're looking for a new audiobook to listen to, the sample that you click on to listen to is the retail sample. And that is a file that is between a minute and 5 minutes long. And that's usually, what I choose for that is usually either the introduction or a really good, you want to hook the listener in, right? You want them to buy the book based on that sample. So if there was a section that you feel like you really nailed it, right? Or the introduction. Usually, most of what I do is self-help and things like that. So the introduction for me is usually a good way to go because it usually has a summary of what we're going to be talking about. So that would give the listener an idea of what this book is going to be about. So that's usually what I choose for that. If I've forgotten anything, please ask me in the comments. I'll be sure to touch on them. But let's head over to the comments. Oh, my fingers are frozen. I can't move the mouse. Okay. Wow, we got a lot of comments and we got a lot of people in here today. Thanks for spending some time with me, guys. All right, first in, Caesar, of course. How you doing, Caesar? Caesar says, to be perfectly candid, all my issues stem from not having the most ideal recording environment. That really surprises me because your studio is pretty impressive. I have mitigated much of what was causing me major issues in the past, but I still have sound leaks. Well, at the very least, you recognize that, right? So at least you know, and you of all people, I'm sure, know how to fix that, how to remedy the sound leaks, right? And knowing or recognizing are half the battle, for sure. And then Caesar says, there's nothing I can't fix with noise reduction tools. Here comes the frog. And carefully scheduling my recording sessions. But I have plans to really seal this room for the best sound quality. It's only a matter of time. Exactly. It will be fixed. Will. Yes, positive. That said, hello, Angela. Hello, Caesar. Hello, everyone. This year's off to a good start, and I hope everyone hit the ground running this 2024. You've all inspired me to be my best, and I hope I too can inspire others. And Caesar, I can tell you that you do. You do. So keep being you, Caesar. Glowen says, I struggle with every recording I do, trying to clean it up and make it ACX compliant. Noise isn't my problem. My breathing is my problem. If I could stop doing that, I'd be 95% okay. Glowen, don't stop breathing. I do not recommend the ceasing of the breathing. I do not recommend that. I do, however, to not focus so much on the breathing. Unless you have big gulping breaths or something, which nobody does. Breathing is completely normal. Don't ruminate on the breathing. Just leave it alone. I bet you're the only one that hears that breathing as off-putting. You're the only one. I bet you anything. I don't think breathing is a problem. Leave the breaths in, my God. That definitely sets us apart from the AI, right? Because robots don't breathe. So leave them in. Leave it alone. Rustic Hillbilly's here. Good morning, Rustic Hillbilly. Good to see you. Pamela, howdy. Hello, Pamela. Glowen then says, top of the day to you, voiceover Angela in chat. I'm not late today, so no donuts. Hope your coffee's hot and bold today. It's sort of tepid and mild. Oh, well, we can make a new pot after this. Dylan says, good morning, all. Good morning, Dylan. I've only produced 8 books, but I met specs every time. Good for you. I'm still not settled with my stack, though. I have a sample out to an engineer, but haven't heard back yet. Interesting. That's great. And if and when you can get to that stage, when you're reaching out to an audio engineer, I highly recommend that you do. It's worth every penny. It's an investment for sure, but it's an investment in you and your sound quality, which, as voice actors, audiobook narrators, that is everything. That is everything that you do every day. Every file that you submit for whatever purpose, that's everyday usage. It's worth every penny to have an audio engineer work with you on not only possibly a booth audit, right, to make your space sound the best that it can, but also to help you develop effects for your rack, to maybe tame some sibilance, or to maybe help you with, maybe adding some warmth to your voice, right? They can help you create a rack and a preset to help your audio quality, to help you sound your best. So it's definitely worth the investment, 100%. Rick Hall says, good morning to you and everyone. Good morning to you, Rick Hall. Sinister Shadow. I like that username. Hi, New Year. Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Big warm hug to you, Sinister Shadow. MG Stevens is here. Good morning, Angela and everyone. Good morning, MG Stevens. Hope all are keeping safe. Our kids got out early from school. Due to stormy weather, I'm sorry, but I have to say 2024 has been chock full of events so far. Stormy weather. Yeah, it's been stormy here too, but I'll take it. We need it. Goodness. Facebook user, this is Colette. Good morning, Colette. How are you? Sorry, I'm still froggy. Mary HPVO says, hello, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Mary. Hoping this Tuesday is going great for everyone. So far, so good for me. Facebook user, this is Colette. Not comfortable at all. Well, we need to work on that, Colette. This week in our Platinum group, we'll be working on, it is roulette read, but I'm going to be bringing audiobook stuff, so it's not so much of a surprise. We'll be reading audiobook samples in this week's group. And if we have time, we'll touch on some formatting also for ACX. Hot Pink Bear 31. So I got excited about starting, and I didn't realize the differences in microphones. And I think I'm struggling because I got a dynamic microphone. There are different kinds of microphones for sure, but I don't think that a dynamic versus a condenser or something else is going to make or break your career. I think you'd really, and I always recommend this because it is so worth the time, but join like a workshop or a mastermind group where you can get live feedback, because I think you might be being led astray somewhere. Maybe not by other people, but we are our own worst critics. I don't think that could be an issue, but we would love to help you with that for sure. Help you move past that and tell you whether or not maybe there's something wrong with the microphone. I feel a tangent coming on, but it might not be the microphone. So we'd love to help you pass that. Hat Powser says, good morning, ascending fractal wonders. Joe Pace says, it is hard work. Audiobooks, it is. And you know what? I have to say, I'm sure you have all at some point seen those social media posts of somebody saying, make $1,000 in an hour in your PJs with just your voice. And it's so misleading because audiobook production takes time. It takes time to narrate, to learn, to edit, to learn, to master. It takes a lot more effort and time and investment than these social media creators give credit. And it is very misleading. It is hard work. It's definitely a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is not something you can do in most cases in a day. So you're right. It is hard work. And that's why we have these chats to talk about it. So hopefully something in this discussion today will help you to move past whatever roadblock or speed bump that you are currently experiencing yourself. Facebook user, this is Joe Reader. Good morning, Joe. Good morning. Haven't attempted yet. Well, hopefully we can help you to get to that attempting or doing point. Mary says, I think the most thing I struggle with the most is with editing. Goodness. So if I have an issue, it is there with the RH and not with ACX standards almost always. Okay, so your biggest struggle is with the editing, like, so if I have an issue, it's there with the RH and not with ACX standards. So are you missing maybe retakes, or is there something, what is it, what is it specifically with the editing? Inquiring minds want to know. Brian Mark Mitchell is here. Good morning, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Caesar says to Hot Pink Bear, I had the same issue myself, having followed the wrong advice. Not all is lost, however. Treat your room first, then your microphone may become more usable. And I think that's kind of the point that I was getting at. It may not be just the microphone. It could be the space, could be something that you're doing. Maybe it's you're too close. Maybe it's too hot. Maybe it's not loud enough. I mean, it could be a number of things that are easy to remedy, I think is what I was trying to get at earlier. So thank you for reiterating, Caesar. Well, the nails are totally next level for 2024. Hat Powser says, yes, it's kind of like a sparkly royal blue. I like it. They're sparkly. Thank you. Brian says, do you put the 0.5 seconds at the beginning and end of credits and 2 seconds between title and author names? Every file, not just the closing credits, but every single file, even including the retail sample, have to have the same proper amount of room tone at the head and at the tail of each file. So every file, your narration needs to start between a half a second and a second of room tone. There has to be between a half a second and a second of room tone at the start of each file. So, for example, my narration will typically start somewhere around, 0.7 seconds, right in the middle of 0.5 and a second. So that's where my narration typically starts. And then at the tail or the end of the file, there needs to be between a second and 5 seconds of room tone at the end of each file. That's for the opening credits, that's for the closing credits, for the retail sample. Every single file needs to have that same format of room tone at the head and the tail of each file. Now, for the 2 seconds between the title and author's names, for the opening credits, I wouldn't have that much of a gap, maybe half a second, right? You want it to be evenly paced, right? This is the title of the book. This is the subtitle of the book. Written by author's name, read for you by my name. You want it to flow, right? You don't want it to have too much of a pause. And it doesn't have to be exact. The only things that have to be exact in terms of room tone allotment is the head and the tail of the file. Everything else is sort of evenly paced. Unless there's a subtitle or a separate section, right? Then you want to give it maybe an additional little bit of a pause, maybe a couple of seconds between, I'm trying to give an example in my head. Like if there's the title, chapter 1, subtitle chapter 1, and you're reading, and then you get to a whole different point and there's maybe a subtitle and you give it 2 seconds, then subtitle, maybe a second, and then start the narration for what's under the subtitle. You just want to sort of break it up the same way that the book is written, but giving the impression, because you got to remember, the people listening are not following along with you. So if there's a new thought or a brand new idea or something else, right? Maybe a whole different subsection to the chapter, you want to give it a little bit of a pause to give that impression that this is wholly something new, right? But it doesn't have to be exact, if that makes sense. I am going to do a audiobook course, I think. I'm in the middle. I've had It's been a busy year, but I have got a few videos of it made. I need to continue to get this finished, but I will have one fairly soon that will break all of these down even further. Caesar says to Hot Pink Bear 31, if it doesn't, at least your room is already treated and ready for a condenser microphone. But maybe find a way to make that dynamic mic work for you using EQ. Absolutely. Sinister Shadow says sample like the prologue, some of it. Yeah, absolutely. You could even use, like, let's just say chapter 3, there's something really amazing going on that really sucked you in as the narrator, right? It was really compelling. You really made you go, man, this is a really good book. And you nailed it. You nailed that performance. Use that, because that might have the same effect on the listener too. Unless the rights holder has their own section selected for the retail sample, which I have found has been rare. I rarely have a rights holder tell me what they want to use as the retail sample. I usually just choose for them, and that's typically what it is. Because again, most of what I do is sort of self-help, women's empowerment, things like that. So usually the introduction is what I use, or a section of it. But the prologue also. Facebook user, this is Steve Wilson. Always fun. Dwight is here. Hey, Dwight. Good morning, Angela and fellow Angelinos. Hope all is well. We are preparing for a major storm that is hitting the East Coast. I did see that. I saw that on the news this morning. That's crazy. Stay safe out there. Nuts. I am Paximus. Hey, Paximus. How you doing? Good morning, Angela. How are you today? I am fabulous. Thank you. I hope you are too. Thanks for this live and the great help and tips. This is a helpful topic to discuss today as I'm putting together my first audiobook narration recording. Well, that is very timely then for you. And again, this stems from questions I get all the time. So you guys are sort of the captain of this ship. You guys tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll talk about it. You know, if there's something that you're just dying to know more about, put it in the comments. If you're watching this after, if you're team replay, then put it in the comments. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to learn more about? Then let's do it, right? This topic today has stemmed from the majority of questions that I've gotten in the past week have been about audiobook structure and formatting. So here we are. I hope that helps. But I'm glad that it's timely. Glowin says, OMG, it makes me crazy when I hear it. Big, loud in breaths because I'm a nose breather. Haven't learned how to breathe through my mouth when reading. Okay, so then maybe that is something we need to practice. I don't think it's a bad thing to breathe through your nose, but I can see where that might be off-putting, especially if you've got some congestion or if you have a noisy nose. I could see how that could be a problem. Maybe we can work on that. I'll have to look at some techniques to help develop mouth breathing instead of nose breathing when you're narrating. Interesting. Okay. We'll see if we can do something with that, Glowin. Brittany Beck says, I will remove a portion of breaths so I don't sound like I'm hyperventilating, but I leave most of them. Okay, true. Yes, true. There have been many audiobooks that I've listened to where I loved the narrator's voice. I loved the way that he was narrating, but he would take a sharp breath in every time he started a new sentence. And I'm one of those people that can pick up on patterns fairly easily. And so I got to the point where I'm trying to enjoy the story, but all I was doing, I caught myself just anticipating that next at the start of the next sentence, and it was driving me nuts. So I can see removing some if you are someone that starts each sentence with maybe an inhalation of breath. Removing a few of them, so it sort of throws that pattern off. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but that is my personal experience with stuff like that. But again, don't remove all your breaths. Don't feel like you have to manipulate all of your breaths or remove them or quiet them or turn the volume down or anything. We're humans. We breathe. My God, leave them in there. You can remove a few of them if you have a big a big inhalation of breath after a big paragraph, or, take that out if it's off-putting. But for the most part, leave the breaths in. Don't worry about it. Mary HP says, get a cup warmer. I have one. I just don't use it. Because, all right, I'm sure you guys can relate. This is a little tiny little room, and I only have like one outlet on either side. And of course, they're full because everything in here needs power of some sort, right? Everything needs power, and not everything is bus powered. So it has to be plugged in. I don't have any other, I don't have any way to plug it in, but I have one. I just don't use it because I don't have anywhere to plug it in. And that's my own fault. I could probably get one of those USB plugs. I'm getting off on a tangent again, but yes, I definitely should figure out how to use it. But it is the best gadget in my office, and my coffee's always hot and delish. So jelly. Brian says audio engineer equals tax write-off. Facebook user, good morning. This is Mark Holcomb. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining. Sinister Shadow says, thanks. Game name for like 10 years. Glad to be here. It's a pretty cool username, I gotta say. I have to ask though, Sinister Shadow, are you still gaming? Do you do like YouTube gaming or Twitch gaming? I'm curious. I like gaming too. Caesar says to Glowen, it takes some training. I mount my copy above my mic so my throat is open, clear my nose with nasal spray, then meditate and do facial stretching until my lower jaw unclenches. All good things, Caesar. Thank you for sharing that. All good things. Definitely sitting up straight. There's two schools of thought for voiceover. Is that, well, no, I shouldn't say two schools of thought. A lot of people stand and a lot of people sit. I find that audiobook narrators tend to sit more often because audiobooks are a marathon. They're not something you can do within a few minutes. But if you are a sitter, you need to sit up straight so you can control that diaphragm. Sit up straight. Big inhalation of breath, right? Lung control. So another thing to keep in mind, in addition to what Caesar's saying, all of those things will definitely help with audiobook narration. I'm trying to squash the tangent before it starts. Brian says, I don't know about meeting ACX standards. I turned my first book in this morning. Congratulations. That's awesome. I would say that you are doing just fine with ACX standards. As I told you in our last meeting, I'm very proud of how far you've come in such a short amount of time. And I think meeting ACX standards was one of those things that I had mentioned. But every once in a while, ACX will come back with, and I think we talked about this last time we met, the ACX will come back with, hey, something is off here. It may or may not be. The software is not 100% perfect. It misses things sometimes. But I think I have a feeling you're going to be just fine. But you should hear something back from ACX QA fairly quickly. They've been getting through these books, publishing them to retail very quickly. Well, congratulations, Brian. Dylan says, Caesar, your prep is much better than mine. I locked my kids out of the room and slapped my face to wake myself up. Take a big gulp of wine and go. Make sure you also have water and drink that after your wine, because the wine will make your mouth sticky. Joe says you are such a blessing. Oh, thank you, Joe. I'm just glad to be here, Joe. Caesar says, my first mic was a USB condenser. Same. It was hollow and boomy. My second mic was an XLR dynamic. It was thin and quiet. My third mic was a high-quality condenser, and it sounded muddy and sibilant. And then, so I treated my room and trained myself in mic technique. Then all three mics started sounding great. Moral, treat room first. Understand how recording works before buying all the shiny things. You're not a good one to talk about refraining from buying shiny things, Caesar. But great points, yes. Treat your room. That is the most important thing. All of the walls around you will reflect your voice, causing echo. The ceiling above you, your desktop, the floor beneath you, the door behind you, all of those things can reflect. So treating your room is more important than the mic choice, I think. And I think a lot of people would agree. But treat your room. Spend more time on that for sure. Robert is here. Hey, Robert. Robert is here wanting to do and improve, but have not felt well in a while. I'm sorry to hear that, Robert. Then he continues, I have a great mic, everyone tells me, but the noise floor is my frustration. So we need to figure out where your noise is coming from and see if we could either move it further away from your mic or eliminate it altogether. And I have found in my own experience that my noise floor came from either my computer, and I don't know if you can hear it now, but my door is open, so my computer is like 3 feet away, and it's fairly loud. That contributes to your noise floor. If you have any electronics in your room, like if you have your monitors on, you guys never see them, but I have 2 JBL monitors, one on either side of my desk. If those are on, they're going to be emitting electronic frequency that's going to be picked up by your microphone, which can contribute to your noise floor. If you have an electrical panel nearby, an HVAC system, a fan overhead, right? Think about everything that's in your room and that could be emitting a low hum. And either try to move your mic away from it or move it out of the room altogether if you can, or additional soundproofing if you have to, right? That could be something that hopefully helps solve your noise floor problem. Hot Pink Bear says to Caesar, I hope I can treat the space the best to get started. Then I'll definitely get a condenser mic. There you go. Start with treating your room and see if there's still a problem in your eyes. There may not be a problem at all. There might not be any kind of problem, right? But getting feedback from other people will definitely help you determine what direction you need to go in. Caesar says to Robert, hi, Robert, go at your own pace and prioritize health above all else. Absolutely. My business partner used to say, there will always be work. Get better first, then get back in the grind. Well put, Caesar. Mary HPVO says, my last point for my editing is definitely missing retakes. It happens occasionally. I need to go back and update. Seldom, but that is my struggle. Okay. I definitely know I've done that in the past as well. It's just a matter of slowing down, right? Having something that if you're a clicker to mark your mistakes, then making sure that when you do click, that whatever you're using to click is super close to the microphone, so it creates a nice sharp spike. So when you're going through the editing later, you see where the retake happened. Or if you snap or cluck your tongue or clap, any of those things will create a nice sharp spike. If you're a punch and roller, to making sure that you're using or maybe noticing where you're making mistakes. I know sometimes we're just not thinking, we're so focused on the story, you just forget what you're supposed to be doing. But I think my point is, Mary, that it'll get better with time, right? It'll become more of like muscle memory. It'll become like second nature to find a way to not miss these things and to incorporate that into your process going forward. And then it's just the same wash and repeat, right? It'll get easier as you go along. You know what we haven't done in a while is check the poll. I am making note of where we're leaving off, and then we're going over to the banner. So again, today's poll was, how comfortable are you with your audiobook formatting or editing process? Not so much meeting ACX standards, but the actual like audiobook structure, like what files go where. And maybe even editing, removing retakes. How comfortable are you with that process? And so now we have 50 votes, and it's still pretty much the same as it was before. 24% of you said I pass QA every time. 30% of you said I have some issues sometimes, which I think is pretty normal. And 14% of you said I'm having a hard time with it. And 32% of you said I haven't tried yet. Well, that's good. I'm hoping that something that we're talking about today will help you get started on the right foot, perhaps. Maybe answer some of the questions that you've been mulling over in your head, right? Eliminating some of that fear that keeps us from moving forward. I'm hoping that this helps in some way, shape, or form today in your audiobook formatting process. I think it will. I'm hoping it will. All right, let's go back to, the comments. Oh boy. So many other comments pop in. Hold on. Here we go. All right. Caesar says to Robert Reed, I can also tell you that the Shure MV7 is arguably more balanced than it is more expensive sibling. Noise isolation is always a challenge. Drop by Discord and we can help you out. There you go. Good suggestion, Caesar. Tiff's Stellar Reads. How you doing, Tiff? Hey, Angela. Do you have any advice tips for someone who has huge resistance to getting started and getting things done like myself? Haha. I have such trouble starting my side hustle to do this. You know what I'm going to say? And I'm sure everybody watching this who has watched me for any length of time is going to know what I'm going to say. Just do it. Whatever is holding you back, it's you. You're holding yourself back by telling yourself that you don't have this, or you need to get this, or you need to learn more about this. Just do it. Don't let yourself hold yourself back from doing this. Don't get stuck in the procrastinating stage. Just move past it. Just get started. I think for the amount of time that you've been involved in my live chats, and this is number 107. I've had 107 of these, and I've seen your name quite a few times. I think at this point, you probably have enough knowledge to move forward. So, Tiff, sit down and ask yourself, what is holding me back? What am I so afraid of? And I think most of the time, the answer to that question is failure. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to be told that I'm not good enough. I'm afraid that I'm not going to pass ACX's QA. I'm not going to do whatever it is. You'll never know if this could be your calling unless you do it. You can't let that fear hold you back. Would you rather just sit there and be afraid of possible consequences that are probably not likely? Or would you rather move forward and start a career in something that you love? Just do it, Tiff. Just do it. Caesar says to Dylan, wow, I should try that regimen out. Knowing myself that one glass of wine may turn into 6, then the rest of the day is shot. Relatable. Mark Gitau. Am I saying that right? Hi, Mark from Africa. Wow, welcome. After creating the account, I don't whether investing on first a mic for good audio or editing software for quality software recording. I would say the mic, because Audacity is free to use and download, and it is a really good DAW. It is really good recording software. I'm a little bit biased, and I'm going to say that I really love Adobe Audition, and I wish everybody would go to it, but I know there are some Reaper fans out there that would probably throw tomatoes at me, but I'm an Adobe Audition fan. But Audacity is really great software, and it's free to use, so invest in the microphone. But first, and more importantly, treat your space. Your space is ultimately more important than anything else. So focus on your space more than anything. Then Mark only says ACX only allows employees from 4 countries. If I get an account from someone, can my account be flagged for sounding African? If ACX is not available in Africa, there are other places to find audiobook work. And no, you wouldn't be flagged for having an African accent. Not at all. You can find audiobook work on freelance marketplace sites like Fiverr, like Upwork, freelancer.com, Guru. You can find audiobook work in a lot of places. And not only that, but if you market yourself on social media as an audiobook narrator, indie authors and publishers can find you that way also. So ACX is not the one and only place to find audiobook work. So don't hang all of your hopes on that, right? Or that is the only place for you to find them, because there's a lot of places to find audiobook work. But I would definitely not recommend falsifying anything. I definitely would not do that, Mark, if that is what you're asking. Caesar says to Mark, I would say a good mic first, then perhaps learn Audacity as your editing software, since it is free and open source. Then improve your workflow from there. Dylan says to Caesar, the wine counteracts the copious amount of coffee I drink during the day. Uppers and downers, everything in balance. I think that's how it's supposed to work. Mark says, I have a number of friends who want to work together making content. Can we do an audio with more than one person? Then different people have different characters. Absolutely. There are so many more full cast audiobooks than I think I've ever heard before. I think it's becoming more and more popular to have a full cast audiobook, for sure. Robert says, what kind of mic do you use? It is a Sennheiser. It's a shotgun mic. It's a Sennheiser 416 MKH. Tycon Delar. I always say that wrong. I know I do. My biggest fear is getting selected to narrate an audiobook, but having so much trouble editing and formatting that I miss the deadline. I'm sure I'm making excuses. Not this year. Gonna make it happen. And I love that. I love that. I could tell you from my own experience, the technical side was the scarier part to me. For sure. Completely relatable. But don't let it hold you back, because you can't learn it unless you do it. You don't learn what not to do unless you do it, right? You can't learn from your mistakes unless you make them. And making a one mistake about, maybe not hitting the RMS correct, or maybe leaving a retake in that the rights holder catches later, that's not going to just completely stop your career. It's a mistake. You correct it and you move past it. And then you go on to the next book with new information that you didn't have in the first book and more confidence than you had in making that first book. So push through, learn all you can. And if you do have a lot of trouble with editing and formatting, then again, get with a group that talks about audiobook creation, or a mentor or somebody to help you work through those, to help build your confidence and getting through the book. Mark says to Caesar, thank you a lot. Caesar's a very helpful dude. Caesar says to Robert, a Loughton Audio LA 320 tube and LA 2020 FET, a Lewitt LCT 440 Pure, an Aston Element, and an Aston Spirit, because I'm slightly insane. Yes, you are. Sinister Shadow says, not anymore. Had to become a serious adult. I'm now 55. So more like empires and puzzles these days. That's awesome. I'm 47 and I still game. You're never too old to game, my opinion. Brian says, I breathe through mouth and feel like Darth Vader. Angela has got me not worrying about it as much. Breathing sounds actually help the performance, especially with emotional parts. You are absolutely 100% correct, Brian. Dwight says, Mary HP, your cup warmer is a great idea. Just be careful, because it too sends out energy waves that might be picked up by your recording equipment, and anything that is electrical has the potential to. This is true of any 110 volt power cords of any kind. There you go. American Zombie. That's funny. I've been trying to upload auditions, but I'm only able to download without a visible upload button. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so if the upload audition button is not visible to you, then that means that it's no longer available, or they're not taking auditions anymore, that it's closed, that they've made an offer to somebody. So if that is what you're running into, if there's no upload audition, that means it's not available for auditions anymore. more than likely. Sinister Shadow says, so I didn't realize breathing is an issue. Now I'm like a nose or mouth breather. Okay, so the idea of these conversations is to not give you new nightmare fuel. That is not the purpose. I'm not trying to unlock new fears for you guys. I'm trying to tell you to not ruminate on these things, because anywhere you go, Sinister Shadow, you're going to hear people talking about breaths in audiobooks, right? Do you remove them? Do you not remove them? Here's how to reduce them. And in my opinion, just leave them in there. My God, with as many audiobooks as I've listened to, the narrators are always breathing. If you take the breaths out, you might as well just be listening to AI generated voices. Leave them in. Like Brian was saying, they help, especially in the dialogue. I mean, all the characters breathe. The narrator is also a character, and they also breathe. Leave them in there. Do it. Don't worry about it. Dwight says, as I build my new sound booth, I'm finding that keeping most stuff out of the booth that is house line voltage electrical is best, i.e. use LED lights and keep the transformer outside of the booth. American Zombie says, wonder why ACX doesn't show an upload button after I download a script. If it's the same thing we were just talking about, if there's no upload your audition, it's because it's no longer available. You had just waited a bit too long to jump in with your audition. They go fast. Masonry Construction says, I have gotten over the frustration of ACX standards by only doing non-ACX type stuff so far. Commercial VO stuff, just a few lines, etc. But decent pay for the time involved and helps overall pay. Absolutely. I mean, audiobook work is not for everybody. There are people that prefer to do the commercial VO work, or, the shorter things where there's all kinds of broadcast rights and usage rights and stuff included with them. Much smaller time frames of work and much, quicker pay, more quicker gratification and return on the investment of time that you spent. Audiobooks take passion and commitment because they do take so much time, and there's usually not as much of a return right away. It could be return over time, right? Especially if you're looking at royalty share or royalty share plus, those royalties are over the next 7 years, every month for the next 7 years. So it's really, an audiobook narrator really has to love what they do, right? There has to be passion for it, because it's not for everybody, for sure. Maybe doing a nice mix of both, like I do, is what I'd recommend. Caesar says to Sinister Shadow, unfortunately, those are the only two places we can breathe. We can always clean up and post, but I think some VOs train themselves to take small sippy breaths between phrases. Yep, you can do that too. But I wouldn't ruminate on the breaths too much. I wouldn't get into that line of thinking. Masonry Construction says to Mark, you won't be flagged for your voice, but you will be flagged and kicked off for some accounts for trying to falsify your location. Yeah, definitely don't do that. Writer Dude says, good morning. A bit late. Munch, mouthful of donut. How is everyone? See, you knew you were supposed to bring donuts. If you're late to the show, you have to bring donuts, and you have to bring enough for everyone. How many people are here? 51 people. I hope you have 50 some odd donuts, because some people eat 2. I definitely would eat 2. How is everyone? Hungry. Hungry for donuts. Tiff Stella Reed says, thanks, Angela. I appreciate it. Now that I reflect, I do believe it's a fear of my work not being good enough and failing. We've all been there. We've all been there. I bet you every single other one of these people watching this today has raised their hand. Yep. Fear of failing, fear of being told that I'm not good enough, whatever. Insert fear here. But you won't know if this is something that you really enjoy doing. I mean, you could be one of the best narrators on the planet and just don't know it yet at the start of your new fledgling career. But you're afraid that you won't be accepted, right? I mean, who cares about any of that? Who cares? If this is something that you really want to do in your heart of hearts, get out there and do it. Who cares what everybody else says? Right? Because your voice, of course, is not going to be for every project. A rights holder or an author has got a voice in their head when they're writing their book. And if your voice is what they were hearing, then you're the right voice for that project. You're not going to be the right voice for every project, right? And you will get rejection letters from ACX. Like if you submit an audition, you're going to get a letter that says, hey, unfortunately, the author chose someone else, but keep going, that kind of a thing. You can't take those as failure. You can't take those as you stink. You can't take those as I'm not cut out for this. You take that as my voice wasn't right for this project, but there are rights holders out there looking for me. So you have to get out there and market yourself. And you market yourself with your samples, with your demos, with your auditions. You have to be visible to that rights holder who is looking for your voice. So to do that, you need to audition and audition often. So get out there. Get out there and do it, Tiff. And then, but I will push past it. Good for you. Good for you. I need a personal motivational speaker. I raise my hand. I volunteer as tribute. I'll do it. MG Stevens says, when I submitted my first audiobook to ACX, it came back during QA with a problem. Noise at beginning and end. On my end, it was a flat line, no noise. But after learning more, let's see, where does she continue? I discovered that my setting was on linear on my DAW, haha. I now set it on logarithmic, which simply put shows the noise. It's a learning process. What you don't know, you don't know. Exactly. And we usually don't find out about what we should know unless we find out about it. We don't learn about things that we need to fix until it becomes a problem. And then when it's a problem, I don't even want to call it a problem. It's a learning opportunity, right? Now you can fix it on everything else going forward. So it's not a bad thing. Hat says, 47 my butt. You still look like a college girl. What magical. Isn't that coffee? Let me tell you, this is not 4K. Be thankful. Because if it was 4K, then you would definitely see 47. But, you know, I've used oil of Olay ever since I was 16, and I take collagen and all of that fun stuff, take care of my skin. I don't see the sunshine ever because I'm in my cave of wonders most of the time. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe because I don't take things seriously. As seriously. I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. Maybe that's just because I am 47. I just don't care anymore. I don't care what people say. But thank you. I appreciate that. Caesar says, I would be so happy if I found out that the fountain of youth was full of delicious coffee instead of water. Yes, I would be too. I'd be forever swimming. Hot Pink Bear says, I saw someone in a Facebook group say they lost a job because they took out too many breaths. And the rights holder accused them of being AI. Now I want to leave more in. That is definitely something that's going to become more and more prevalent with the advancement in the AI voices, especially now that Audible is allowing them. You want to set yourself apart as a human narrator as much as possible from being mistaken as an AI. So leave the human stuff in, right? I mean, how many authors and narrators, how many people are fighting against this and just want human narrators? So be a human narrator. Be what they're looking for. You know, if you have a little bit of gravel in your voice, let that show. AI can't do that. Leave the breaths in. Leave the things in that make us human. My God. Rick Hall says, I find that my breathing at this point in my short career is too loud. I bet you are the only person that probably thinks that. In production, I reduce, but not to eliminate my breathing to sound like a human and not AI. I would say, Rick, here's what I would do. If I was in your shoes, I would post a demo. If you're in my Facebook group, the VO Workshop, I allow you to post demos there for feedback. So what I would do is post a demo to get feedback. Don't say anything about breaths. Don't say anything about them, and just see what people say. It could be just fine. Mark says, hi there. Would you please speak on how to grow on ACX for someone like me who the goal is to nurture the account? Then what at 5-star rating to get better hair? We don't get 5-star ratings on ACX. We do on Audible. People rate you on Audible, but that comes from, of course, like anything else, that you need to get some training. You need to learn what you're doing. You need to work on your performance. There's so much to becoming an audiobook narrator. It's not just picking up your phone and talking into it in your PJs and expecting to make $1,000 a day, like those social media posts claim. It's just not true. Just like anything else brand new, you're probably going to start at a lower price point and work your way up as you continue to improve your sound quality, your performance, your room, your equipment, right? As things progress and get better. So just like anything else, any other new endeavor or business, you start from the bottom and you work your way up, right? And take care of your clients, customer service, of course. MG Stevens says, I discovered that my setting was on linear and, that was the other continued. Facebook user, this is Colette. I did a short taping of a 2 to 3 minute piece and went crazy eliminating breaths. I sent it to a friend and got the response, there's something really wrong with this. Not what I was expecting, but a good lesson in not doing it again. Don't let that deter you. We have to figure out what is wrong with it. Is it the audio quality? Was the mic too hot? Was it too quiet? Did you have too many effects on it? Did you do too much to it? I mean, Lord knows I've been there. I've done it. I think a lot of people could say the same because we don't know what we're doing in the beginning. We don't know what effects work in harmony with other effects. So I would say, don't let that stop you. That was like a first attempt, right? And they probably know you and your voice, and it doesn't sound like you because we probably put too many effects on it or whatever it was, right? They know your voice and they're like, this doesn't sound like you at all, right? So here's what I would do, Colette. Record a new sample and put it in the Discord, in our Platinum Group Discord, and ask for feedback. Do that. And we'll see if we can figure it out. But don't let that stop you. Sinister Shadow says, phew, okay, good. Ryder Dude's got the donuts. Yes. Dwight says, today I'm making homemade baked cinnamon sugar donuts. Oh, God. Killing me. This afternoon with my bride. Oh, God. That sounds amazing. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I would love to have some donuts to dip into my cold coffee. It's cold at this point. Oh my God. Okay. Mary says, OMG, Angela, thank you for saying who cares. I swear that you stink creeps in there and so needed that from you. It does. And I think it still does. I mean, it does for me. We all struggle with that imposter monster, right? The imposter syndrome is real and we all struggle with it. But you have to tell yourself, am I doing this for everybody else or am I doing this for me? Do I know that I can improve? If someone tells me what to improve upon, can I do it? Absolutely. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep improving because this is what I want to do. Right? And again, it's not that am I good enough for this or is my voice good enough or whatever. I hear that question all the time. And I'll say this again, voice actors represent the world. Audiobook narrators represent the world. We represent the voices of the world. There is something for everyone, but you still have to get the audio quality down. You have to get the training, right? You have to go through all the same steps. Maybe not necessarily all in the same order as everybody else, but I mean, you have to be up to snuff audio quality wise and performance wise. You have to know what you're doing as a narrator, right? But everybody's voice has a place, I think. So, yeah, who cares what everybody else thinks? Someone out there is going to think that you're the perfect voice for their project. But you have to get out there and be heard because nobody knows you're there. You build a website, right? Everybody's just not going to come running over to it and go, "Hey, I see that you're a new voice actor. Let's get to business." You have to market yourself. You have to introduce yourself to the world, as I always say. You have to market. You have to audition a lot so people can see or hear what you sound like and how to contact you for work. Stop tangent. Stop. Timeout tangent. Sinister Shadow says, not too worried about being good enough. I feel just like acting. All types are needed, and you will be the one somewhere. Exactly. Exactly. Hit that right on the head. David Horn says, good morning, Angela and all. Good morning, David. M. Todd Coyne says, what is your recording setup now? In terms of hardware? I'm in a converted room. It's just weird, like little office space that's in my house. It's a weird little room. It's like a 5x6 room that I've treated all the walls, the ceiling, floor, the door, everything in here is treated. I have a Sennheiser shotgun mic, the 416. I have a Volt interface from Universal Audio. I use Adobe Audition for my DAW. My headphones are Bear Dynamic DT 700 Pro X's. Is there anything else you wanted to know? Leslie says, I leave several breaths in for the narrator and always breathe in the dialogue, between characters. I took many books to be comfortable with my oxygen intake outage issues, and it just like everything else, lung capacity, right? It's just like training any other muscle in your body. It just takes practice. Absolutely. Glowen says, I have all of those fears every time I look at an audition that I would love to do. Yes, I spend way too much time in editing and pretty much miss out 90% of posting deadlines because of it. Well, there you go. Stop second guessing yourself. And if you see something that you want to audition for, by God, get in there and audition for it. Do it. Do it. Sinister Shadow says AI will start imitating breath. It won't sound natural. It just won't. Caesar says AI will put breaths in the wrong places. Hi, I am totally not AI. I swear to God. Yeah, I know. Leslie says overthinking is a killer. I have the shirt and the coffee mug. Yes, we overthink everything. Masonry Construction says breaths are natural, as is emotion, as is an occasional change in pitch or volume. Emote when you can. Be a storyteller. Absolutely. Hey, Joya's here. Hey, Joya. Colette's effects went sideways when she made booth changes. I know her voice, and yes, it sounded bad after some mic changes, but she sounds better now. Well, there you go, Colette. See? Don't let something that you did after making or before making a bunch of changes be your guide for how your career goes. It's a completely irrelevant now because your booth doesn't sound that way anymore, right? Move past it. Move forward. Mark says, hi there. In audiobook narration, how do you balance meeting completion for the book, editing the audio, and proofreading the book before submission? This is a loaded question because everybody's schedule and availability is going to be different. Just as an example for myself, when I first started, I was still working for a company. So I only had a fraction of the time that I have now to dedicate to creating audiobooks. So I did a couple of hours every night, right? Overall completion time, I think most everything that I got, I asked for 30 days or more to get done. And then you could break it down by, your schedule. I've got a couple of hours tonight that I could do this. So you write it down in your agenda book. This night, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to getting chapters 2 through 5 narrated. And then the next day you can go, okay, I have an hour. So in that hour, I'm going to narrate chapters 6 and 7 or edit chapters 3 through 5 or whatever it is. Just sort of break it down so you're continuing to move forward every day or every other day. You're really going to have to take a look at your schedule and what you have available and quiet time, right? Times of the day where there's not children on skateboards going by, or the family's home and stomping around like elephants above your studio or whatever it is. And then figure out how to break up that book to meet that completion time. You can negotiate with rights holders, even if it comes to, hey, maybe you got sick, or maybe there was something that came up that kept you from staying on track for getting this book done. You could always reach out to the rights holder and say, hey, I got sick or whatever happened. Are we flexible? Can I have an additional week? Most of the time they understand that we're human as they are. And they say, yeah, that's fine. No big deal. Right. So it's not like you're locked into a contract where you can't, as long as you're having these conversations with the rights holder when you want to change any terms or anything, that it's done within ACX. So ACX can get involved and mitigate if they need to. But as long as it's all there, then that's fine. You don't have to change the contract terms themselves. And all of this is according to ACX on their website. Glowen says, tangulants are okay in this forum. Stephanie speaks. What are some websites to get started? For audiobooks, ACX, of course, is Audible, where audiobooks for Audible are made. Fiverr, Upwork, again, freelancer.com, Guru. I've also seen audiobooks on, oh my gosh, was it Bidalgo or Voquent? But some of the other voiceover casting websites sometimes have audiobooks on them as well. I think also Voice 123. I've seen audiobooks on there as well. But ideally, you want to get out and market yourself, places like social media, and then making content about making audiobooks. And that's where indie authors and established authors and publishers will see you and hopefully, reach out and say, hey, we think you'd be perfect for this book. So my point is that you could go to any site that you wanted to find this kind of work, but ideally you don't want to put all of your eggs in that one online platform basket. You want to market yourself directly also. Dylan says, everybody remember to like this video before you leave. Yes, please. Like this video that tells YouTube that you actually like me or this content or both. Either or both. And that way they show my content to more people looking for it. And that really helps me out. Thank you. Facebook user, I'm sure it's Colette. Thanks, Joya. Didn't know you were listening. She's always listening. Stephanie says, what are some websites to get started with jobs? Okay, we just answered that one. Glowen says, wow, did everyone else hear the changes in Angela's sound when she was pushing past her mic when speaking? What do you mean? That was a perfect example of what I've been told I do when I'm reading. Yes, especially with a microphone such as a shotgun, because you guys probably can't see it, but it's just a very small circular opening, right? It's pointing directly at my mouth. So the whole idea of a shotgun mic is to pick up directly what's in front of it. Not so much as to what's over here or over here or over here, right? So you have to stay relatively close by the front of it and, close proximity to the front. So it sounds consistent. Same goes with any other mic, but, mainly with shotguns because the pickup pattern is so laser focused. David says, are you currently working on an audiobook right now? No, I am not. No, but I am in talks with a couple of rights holders, but I have none currently in the process. Learn Audio Basics says, just the support I needed when things are looking grim, VO-wise. Thanks, Angela and everyone. Oh, glad I could help, or we could help. Recall Voiceover says, reading for LibriVox has been great for me to get recording and production procedures fine-tuned. I do auditions daily and still volunteer for LibriVox. I'm glad you brought that up, Rick, because LibriVox is something that I did, and I think it is a great platform to sort of dip your toes into the audiobook narration pool to see if this is something that you enjoy doing and if you can do it. And then once you see that you can do it, then that confidence as you begin your career in ACX or anywhere else is just humongous. It makes everything so much easier, right? And LibriVox it's LibriVox.org. That is the website. And I've talked about it quite a few times in some of my other audiobook videos. But you donate your time. You volunteer to be a narrator. And these are all books in the public domain that they are creating audiobooks out of. And you can either record a chapter, a section, or a book in its entirety for LibriVox. And in that process, you practice with narrating, right? You become a narrator. You see that you can narrate, and you sort of get the feel for what that is like. And the technical side as well, because you also have to format your files to certain specifications. So that's sort of like jumping into a pool, right? And then learning to swim right away. I shouldn't say right away even, because LibriVox, there's no like time constraints. They say, okay, yeah, whenever within the next few months, get it done, kind of a thing. So if you go and do that, a couple of sections for a couple of books in LibriVox, and you learn that you can be a narrator, that you can do the technical side as well, and you're like, all right, I feel so much better about this. Now I'm going to go to ACX and audition there. I'm glad you mentioned that, recall. Oh, hang on a second. Living by the book, are you still here? Yes, I'm here. Did I go somewhere? Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. I'm still here. I promise. Thank you so much. Caesar says the shotgun is hyper. Oh, so is that what you're asking? I'm sorry. Hypercardioid. When she faces the capsule head on, the sound becomes fuller. It also a condenser, so proximity boosts the low end. KM says, I love LibriVox. It's a good place to start. Corey J. VO artist says, late to the party. Here are the donuts. Yes. You know the drill. Donuts. Mark says, hi there. If I got a client and know my worth, is it better as a beginner charging less but getting more jobs, or charging more but doing less? I always say charge what you want to charge, but I can tell you what I did. I started on the lower end because I wasn't still like completely confident in my abilities. I was still learning. So I considered a lower rate kind of like paid internship. I'm still learning on the job and I'm still learning. I'm learning every day, and I've been at this for over 5 years now, but I'm still learning every day. But my worth or my rate is a lot higher than it was in the beginning. But charge what you want to charge. But I started at a lower rate in the beginning. Helmet Fire says, have you noticed a decline in Fiverr seller account approvals? Heard it? No, I haven't. Is that a thing? Have you been declined for an account? That's interesting. I have not heard that. Excuse me, guys. David Horn says, the MKH 416 shotgun microphone has been an industry standard in filmmaking for decades now. Great mic. I have one in my filmmaking arsenal. I love this mic. Helmet Fire says, correction, rise and declines. Now that's interesting. That's the first time I've heard anything close to that. Is this a thing? Are people being declined for account approvals? Leslie says, I learned to be a better narrator from Angela's videos and her coaching. Her platinum group is amazing too. Practice and feedback with wonderful peeps that get you where you are. You're amazing, Leslie. I appreciate you. Mark then says, when you were starting out, did you first start with hardware investments, then software, or vice versa? Is there a path one should take? Not to invest a lot on hardware for getting the software side? No, it's sort of, you need both. I mean, you need them both. It doesn't really matter what you get first, but you can't really move forward until you have all of those elements. So if you want to slowly build, right, start with purchasing software, or start with purchasing a microphone, or start with purchasing an interface, or start with purchasing your headphones, whatever it is, but you need to have all of those elements together to then move forward. So get them in whatever order you want to get them, but you will need them all to become an audiobook narrator. Helmet Fire says, I was declined twice. No reason given. Interesting. I wonder why. I created my account, W-9 approved, built my gigs, then get an email, can't approve. Interesting. I wonder why. Did you ask? You said no reason was given, but did you follow up and say, "Hey, what am I doing wrong?" It'd be really interesting to know, unless there was something that didn't fit their community guidelines, is the only thing I can think of. But you would think that all the money that that platform is making off of freelancers, that they would want more, right? Unless, again, something didn't fit into their guidelines is the only thing I can think of. Just think happy thoughts. What time is it? Ooh, I need to get rolling. All right, guys. Well, I think if I was trying to see if Helmet Fire was going to elaborate, maybe he hasn't. Glowin says to Mark, your booth and space is a priority. A decent mic and interface combined with the software is equally essential. I've just discovered all this recently myself. Helmet Fire says, they said to meet the growing demand for high quality services from trustworthy freelancers. Interesting. So what does that mean? So interesting. No, I have not. This is the first time I've heard this. I'm going to have to look around a little bit, see if this is a thing. Mark said, thank you for all this. I have to leave for my night shift, but I'll be back for the replay. Thanks, Angela. You are a godsend. Oh, I appreciate that, Mark. I'm glad you were able to hang out with us today and ask some great questions. But for you guys, again, if there's something that you want to talk about or want me to talk about or to talk about as a group, because that's kind of what this is, right? It's a bunch of us voice actors getting together talking about things. If there's something you want to learn more about, or if there's something you're curious about, then please, in the replay, put it in the comments, and perhaps next week we can talk about it. But until then, everybody have a fantastic week. I've got to get rolling. And I'll see you then. And if you're late, make sure you bring donuts. See y'all next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to She-Lancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.